You're scrolling through Instagram at 11:30 at night, and you see another one of those posts. Some 24-year-old standing in front of a rented Lamborghini talking about how they made 6 figures in 3 months. And here's the thing, you know it's probably fake, you know it's probably garbage, but there's this tiny voice in the back of your head going, what if they actually found something I'm missing? So you watch the video. You buy the course. And 6 months later, you're in the exact same place you started, except now you're $300 poorer and you feel like an idiot. My name is Todd and I spend way too much time thinking about why smart people stay broke while making every objectively correct financial decision. If you're someone who's been doing everything right, saving money, avoiding debt, staying disciplined, but you still feel like you're nowhere near actually wealthy, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up because we need to talk about the biggest lie in personal finance, and it's not the one you think it is. Here's what most people don't realize. The lie isn't that you need to work harder. It's not that you need to save more. It's not even that you need to invest smarter, although we're going to get into that. The lie is that getting rich and building wealth are the same thing. And the reason this lie is so dangerous is because our entire financial education system is built around it. Every financial advisor, every money guru, every personal finance subreddit is giving you advice designed to help you not be poor. And that is not the same thing as advice designed to make you wealthy. Now look, I know how that sounds. It sounds like I'm splitting hairs. It sounds like I'm being dramatic for YouTube clicks. But stay with me for a second because the math here is actually wild. The average American household has a median net worth of about $121,000. That includes everything, their home equity, their retirement accounts, their checking account, everything. And for people under 35, that number drops to about $13,000. $13,000. That's one used Honda Civic. That's 3 months of median rent in a major city. That's not wealth. That's barely a safety net. But here's where it gets interesting. If you take that same average person and you give them perfect financial advice, the kind of advice that every responsible financial planner would give, what happens? Well, they start maxing out their 401k. They're putting away 6%, their employer matches 3%, so they're getting 9% total going into a retirement account. They set up an emergency fund with 6 months of expenses. They pay off their credit cards. They refinance their mortgage to a lower rate. They do everything right. And after 30 years of doing everything right, you know what they have? About $1.2 million in retirement accounts, adjusted for inflation. Now you might be thinking, Todd, $1.2 million, that sounds pretty good. That sounds like wealth. And compared to where they started, yeah, it's incredible. It's life-changing. But here's the thing that nobody wants to say out loud. $1.2 million in retirement accounts when you're 65 years old is not wealthy. It's comfortable. It's secure. It's everything that person worked for, and they should be proud of it. But it's not private jet money. It's not passive income replacing your salary money. It's not quit your job and do whatever you want money. It's, I can retire without eating cat food money. And that's the lie. We've been taught that if we follow all the rules, we'll be rich. But the rules were never designed to make you rich. They were designed to keep you from being poor. So what's the difference? Here's what most people don't realize. Wealth doesn't come from saving. It comes from owning things that produce value. And I don't mean that in some abstract, motivational poster kind of way. I mean it in a very literal, mathematical sense. When you save money and invest it in an index fund, you're doing something smart. You're getting compound returns. You're diversifying. You're being responsible. But you're also getting the average return that everyone else gets. You're getting 7 to 10% a year if you're lucky, minus inflation, minus taxes. You're getting wealthy slowly, at the exact same pace as everyone else who's following the same advice. But people who actually get rich, and I'm talking about the kind of rich where you can stop trading time for money, they're doing something fundamentally different. They're not just investing in things. They're creating things, or they're investing in things before everyone else figures out they're valuable. They're starting businesses. They're buying real estate before the neighborhood gets hot. They're taking equity in startups. They're doing things that have asymmetric returns, where the downside is limited but the upside is exponential. Now look, I can already hear the objections. Todd, that sounds great, but I'm not a founder. I don't know how to start a business. I don't have money to invest in startups. I'm just trying to pay my bills. And I get it. I really do. But here's the psychological trap that keeps people stuck. We've been conditioned to think that the only two options are either follow the traditional path of slow, steady wealth building, or become some kind of reckless gambler throwing money at crypto and NFTs. And that's a false choice. There's a massive middle ground that almost nobody talks about. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're a software engineer making $100,000 a year. Standard financial advice says take that paycheck, max out your 401k, put some money in index funds, build your emergency fund. And that's good advice. But here's what that same person could do differently. They could take 10% of their income, $10,000 a year, and use it to build asymmetric bets. Maybe they spend 1,000 hours learning how to build a SaaS product and they launch something on the side. Maybe they put $5,000 into angel investing through a platform like AngelList. Maybe they buy a small rental property in an emerging market with a partner. Maybe they build a YouTube channel or a newsletter that could turn into a business. Here's the thing. Most of those bets will fail. That SaaS product might go nowhere. That angel investment might go to zero. That rental property might be a headache. But you only need one of them to work. You only need one $10,000 investment to turn into $100,000 or $1 million because that's how asymmetric returns work. The math is totally different. With an index fund, if you invest $10,000 and it does really well, you might have $15,000 in a few years. If you invest $10,000 in a failed startup, you have $0. But if you invest $10,000 in a startup that exits, you might have $200,000. The expected value is completely different once you account for the possibility of exponential outcomes. And this is where the psychology gets really interesting. We've been taught to avoid risk. We've been taught that the responsible thing to do is to take the guaranteed 7% return instead of the uncertain possibility of a life-changing return. And for most things in life, that's correct. You should have insurance. You should have an emergency fund. You should diversify your retirement accounts. But if 100% of your financial strategy is risk avoidance, you're guaranteeing that you'll never be more than comfortable. You're guaranteeing that you'll never have the kind of wealth that actually changes your life. Now you might be thinking, okay Todd, but what about people who don't have extra money to invest? What about people who are living paycheck to paycheck? And that's a completely fair question. But here's what most people don't realize. The biggest asymmetric bet you can make isn't with money. It's with time. If you're 25 years old and you spend 1,000 hours over the next 2 years building something, a skill, a business, a portfolio, a network, the opportunity cost is relatively low. You're probably not giving up that much income because you're early in your career anyway. But the potential upside is massive because you have decades for that skill or that business to compound. Let me tell you a story. I know a guy who worked in marketing at a tech company making $70,000 a year. Totally normal job. Totally normal life. But he spent his evenings and weekends for 2 years learning how to do growth marketing for SaaS companies. He took courses. He ran experiments on his own projects. He built case studies. And then he started freelancing on the side. Within a year, he was making more from freelancing than from his full-time job. Within 2 years, he had his own agency doing 7 figures in revenue. Within 4 years, he sold that agency for multiple millions of dollars. And here's the kicker. The only thing he invested was time. He didn't need startup capital. He didn't need investors. He just needed to be willing to spend 2,000 hours building something instead of watching Netflix. Now look, I'm not saying everyone should start an agency. I'm not saying everyone should quit their job and become an entrepreneur. What I'm saying is that the math of building wealth is fundamentally different from the math of not being poor. And if you want to actually be wealthy, not just comfortable, you have to think about asymmetric bets. You have to think about things where you can lose a little but win a lot. Here's another way to think about it. The traditional path is linear. You save 10% of your income every year, you invest it at 7% returns, you do this for 30 years, and you end up with a predictable amount of money. It's a straight line going up. But the wealth-building path is exponential. You make 10 small bets, 9 of them fail or break even, and one of them returns 10x or 100x. And that one winner makes up for all the losses and then some. The math is completely different. The strategy is completely different. The psychology is completely different. And this is why the traditional advice, while not wrong, is incomplete. It's optimized for one goal, which is financial security and a comfortable retirement. And that's a worthy goal. But it's not the same as wealth. It's not the same as freedom. It's not the same as having enough passive income that you never have to trade time for money again. So what do you actually do with this information? Here's the thing. You don't abandon the traditional path completely. You don't stop saving for retirement. You don't blow up your 401k and throw it all into some speculative investment. That would be stupid. What you do is you build a barbell strategy. On one side, you have your safe, boring, diversified investments that are going to grow slowly and predictably. That's your foundation. That's your security. And on the other side, you have your asymmetric bets. Your side projects, your skill development, your angel investments, your real estate deals, whatever makes sense for you. And you allocate your resources accordingly. Here's a framework that actually works. Take 80% of your investable income and put it into the boring stuff. Index funds, retirement accounts, maybe some bonds if you're conservative. That 80% is your safety net. That's what ensures you won't end up broke. But then take the other 20% and use it to make asymmetric bets. Use it to invest in things that could change your life. Use it to build skills that could 10x your income. Use it to start businesses or invest in other people's businesses. And here's the key. You have to be okay with most of those bets failing. You have to be okay with losing that 20% over and over again, because the one time it works, it's going to make up for everything else. And if you don't have 20% to invest because money's tight, then invest time instead. Spend 5 hours a week building something, learning something, creating something. Because 5 hours a week over 2 years is 500 hours, and 500 hours of focused effort on the right thing can absolutely change your life. Here's what most people don't realize. The people who are actually wealthy, not just comfortable, they're not smarter than you. They're not luckier than you, although luck definitely plays a role. What they did differently is they took asymmetric bets. They put themselves in positions where they could fail small but win big. And they did it over and over again until one of them hit. Now look, I know this sounds risky. I know it sounds like I'm telling you to gamble with your future. But here's the thing. Not taking asymmetric bets is also a risk. It's the risk that you spend 40 years doing everything right and you end up comfortable but not free. It's the risk that you follow all the rules and you never get to stop trading time for money. It's the risk that you wake up at 65 and realize that you were so focused on not losing that you never gave yourself a chance to actually win. So here's my challenge to you. Figure out what your asymmetric bet is. Maybe it's starting that side business you've been thinking about. Maybe it's learning that skill that could double your income. Maybe it's investing in yourself in a way that's uncomfortable but could pay off exponentially. Whatever it is, start small but start now. Because the lie that everyone believes about getting rich is that it happens by following the rules. But the truth is, the rules were designed to keep you safe, not to make you wealthy. And if you want to actually build wealth, you have to be willing to do something different. If this video made you think differently about money and wealth, hit that like button and subscribe because we're going to keep talking about the uncomfortable truths that nobody else wants to say. And if you want to dive deeper into this stuff, I've got more videos breaking down exactly how to think about asymmetric bets, how to build multiple income streams, and how to actually structure your finances for wealth, not just security. I'll see you in the next one.